Hello, everybody. We're just going to allow everyone to trickle in for a few minutes here. So bear with us while we let people kind of come in from the waiting room, the virtual waiting room. Tom, are you there?
All right, April, how are you?
I'm good. How's quarantine treating you?
Oh, thanks. It's good. It's good. So far, so good.
I see that you have a significantly grown out beard.
Yeah, I ran out of razor blades. I don't know what to do.
Okay, so let me begin by introducing myself. I'm April Farrell. Hello, everyone out there. I'm the Senior Membership and Annual Giving Manager here at Museum of Contemporary Art San Diego. And we have Tom Callas, who is MCASD's Registrar. And he has been with us since, we actually both started in 2012. So we've both been with the museum for 8 years. And he previously was at the Museum of Photographic Arts and spent 12 years at the Orange County Museum of Art. So we will be getting started with him in just a second. I have a few housekeeping notes I wanted to run through with everyone. So we have gathered a series of questions already that we wanted to kind of pose to Tom, but we would love for you guys, if you have any burning questions, to submit them. There's a little Q&A feature that you should see at the top of your screen, and you can submit questions there. And if I'm savvy enough, I will be able to pepper those in throughout our conversation. But if not, we'll do a little section at the end so we can make sure to get through some of them. Also, we have our chat feature turned on today, so please feel free to chat with each other, make comments, say hello. It's a great way to kind of have a connected interactivity while we have our chat. We may have a few choppy internet bits here and there. Just bear with us, we'll sort it out. Tom will get up and move, I'll get up and move. We're all kind of working in weird spaces. I'm in my new outdoor home office, which is kind of nice to get a little sunshine while we do this. But so we started this idea a couple of weeks ago as we're trying to figure out new ways to connect with you guys, our members out there. And we kind of were having this conversation about really missing interacting with our visitors, our members, our artists in our community. And we also kind of talked about the fact that we really miss each other, which is kind of nice considering we all work together, we all actually really like each other. And one of the people that came to mind to kind of kick this off immediately for all of us was Tom, because Tom does this amazing thing where he gets up probably once or twice a day and he goes around the museum and he says hi at everyone's desk. And it's a great little time to have a break. Tom has great stories. And now he's resorted to having to do this via email. So we're really thrilled to be able to do this now in a virtual format. And let's kick this off, Tom. How you got your coffee?
Actually, I'm lying. I got tea.
Of course you have tea. So I think what we wanted to do to kind of really start at the beginning, right? So while some of our audience members might know what a registrar is, some might not. So Tom, what is a registrar?
We're the staff members who are responsible for the care of the artwork. Now, I mean, obviously everybody on the staff cares about the artwork. They want to make sure that it's in good, that it's properly cared for. But myself and our associate registrar, Corinne, are the only staff members whose primary responsibility is to care for the art. So we make sure we know what artwork we have that we're responsible for, where it is, where it's been, where it's going. So we basically just, essentially the core of it is just to keep track of the artwork. You know, a lot of that involves making planning for the movement of artwork from storage onto exhibition or from lenders across the country, across the world to the museum for exhibition. It's a lot of detailed record keeping, but also we get interact with the artwork an awful lot, which is the funnest part of the work.
When did you decide you wanted to be a registrar? Was that something that you had always wanted to do, or is that something that kind of came about in your education or career?
It's funny. I actually have a degree in education, and I had planned on a career in museum education. And when I got out of school, I got an internship at a local museum in their education office. And in the course of the first few weeks of that, I sort of saw what the registrar was doing, and I thought, well, that actually sounds really very interesting. So I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember how I did it, but I somehow managed to transition from an education internship into into a registrarial internship, and that's sort of how it all began.
Was touching the art part of the allure?
Well, yeah, no, that's a myth, April. We
Okay.
don't. With gloves, we can. Always with gloves.
Now, did you need to get kind of special certifications or have a special degree if anyone out there is interested in pursuing this kind of a field?
Not a specialized degree for collection management or registration or anything of that nature. A lot of my colleagues have masters in museum studies. That's a common pathway. I don't have one. I just have I have some coursework in museum studies, but not an advanced degree. Just got a lot of perseverance.
So a lot of on-the-job learning.
Absolutely, it's a lot of observation and a lot of learning from my own mistakes, which
You don't make any more.
I don't make the same mistakes again.
So you've been at this a while now. What are some of like the favorite parts of the job?
Oh, you know, we do a lot of as I said, we get a lot of interaction with the artwork. We look at every artwork. We inspect every artwork as it comes into the museum for exhibition, as it leaves the museum for loan or to go back into storage. We look closely at every artwork, and I find that really interesting. Looking for condition to describe the condition, looking for condition problems, and so that's kind of the thing that I think is the most interesting, is that we really actually get to physically interact with every object that comes through the museum. You know, the job has a lot of challenges, and as I said, a lot of it is logistics. We're arranging for the shipment of works from around the world, around the country, across town, from our own storage to the galleries, and that's you know, that presents some challenges. We're trying to, you know, minimize the or work within our budgets and various timetables, schedules of lenders or our own timetables. So it's a lot of logistics, which I really find is interesting. And sometimes it just throws challenges at you about, you know, something has to be here by a certain date, but the lender can't release it until a date that's probably not enough time to get it here. And then how are we going to arrange that? Those sorts of things are those challenges that I really find interesting.
Now, that kind of actually leads perfectly into one of the other things that I find most interesting and didn't really know until recently, is the part of your job that actually kind of involves couriering. Is that how you say that? Artworks. Whereas occasionally when we are lending a piece or borrowing a piece, they actually require a human being to kind of accompany it. Am I saying that correctly?
Absolutely. So you know, a lot of things, you know, a lot of museums actually send a courier, a human, to accompany every loan that goes out. We don't. We base our decision on the value of the artwork, the fragility of the artwork, the where it's going, and it can be, you know, a courier could be somebody on a truck going across the country, or it could be somebody on an aircraft going across the world. Usually, it's not as glamorous as it sounds, because if you're talking about somebody on a truck or going across the country, they're somebody sitting with two truck drivers in the jump seat of a semi-tractor trailer for 2.5 days.
Have you done that?
Not done. I've done shorter land couriers, but not across country. I've done a couple of air travel. And that's, you know, it sounds glamorous, but really it's a lot of time spent waiting in a cargo terminal for artwork to get loaded or unloaded from the aircraft, and then you know, rejoining it and going on its way with it. I did take an artwork from Los Angeles to Madrid once, and it was a kind of a large artwork and part of a large shipment. And they don't fly cargo from Los Angeles to Madrid, so we flew to Amsterdam, and they put the cargo on a truck. And there were two couriers, which is too many to fit on the jump seat of a truck because there are already two drivers there. So we had a Spanish driver and we went in a follow car. So we, for 2.5 days, followed a truck from Amsterdam to Madrid, which was actually kind of fun. but again, it's not necessarily so glamorous because it's you know, you're responsible for an artwork. Ultimately, you're sort of responsible for what happens to it, at least observing what happens to it. And we don't do that an awful lot, basically because it really adds an awful lot to the cost of a shipment. But we, in case of high valued works or something particularly fragile.
Well, actually, one of our members, Robin, hi Robin, just asked, where does that cost get incurred? Is that built into kind of maybe the exhibition budget, or?
Yeah. So when we, you know, when a borrowing institution calculates the budget for a, so they may have to factor in, okay, we've got an artwork coming from a museum in New York, and they'll require a courier on the truck, so we have to add that in, or coming from a museum in Paris, and they'll require a courier, and you factor that in. You know, we try to join with other institutions who may. That's my first question: is if we're lending something to a museum in Spain, are there any other Southern California lenders that might be requiring a courier? Can we use their courier? Can they use us, so that we can sort of minimize the cost to the borrower?
Genius.
Yeah, well, we try to be sensitive about this, and also, you know, we really want to care for the art. That's our primary concern, but you know, we want to be conscious of other factors.
Great. So one of the other things that I wanted to throw at you, we have in the last couple of years had a number of exhibitions, whether it's Memories of Under Development or other shows that have had some live animals in them. Does that add another layer of kind of drama to your job or excitement? I mean, I just imagine it would be a whole different, pardon my pun, a kettle of fish or something. But what is it like when you have artworks with live elements like that?
Well, it adds an extra layer of responsibility, because obviously these are living beings, and we want to make sure that nothing happens to them. And Memories of Under Development had several small birds and a very large bird, a parrot, perhaps, I'm forgotten now what breed, and then a snake, of course, obviously the snake. And we obviously don't want anything to happen to them, so we had a local reptile rescue organization give us help lend their expertise to the care of the snake. They came by once or twice a week to make sure that it was okay. They described how the enclosure should be constructed. We had our visitor service representatives went to training to a bird sanctuary to learn how to feed and care for the birds. You know, obviously there were several finches, and I've forgotten now how many it started out with, but the finches being finches, at the beginning there were 7, at the end there were 13. So that was kind of I lost a bet on that, how many there would eventually be at the end. The snake got out once, which was a thrill. My desk from one of the security supervisors, and they said, "Tom, the snake got out." And I said, "You're kidding." And so I called our lead preparator, and I said, "Jeremy, the snake got out." And he said, "You're kidding." And then I called my boss, and I said, "Jenna, the snake got out." And she said, "You're kidding." And so we ran down and called the snake rescue people to help us sort of wrangle it. And I wasn't so much worried that the snake would harm anybody, but I didn't want the snake to, you know, to injure itself somehow falling around the gallery. So I spent 45 minutes, I think, just sort of trying to convince the snake to stay where it was by flashing shiny objects at it and talking softly to it. I don't think I sang, but I may have. I've forgotten now.
Catherine Kanja would like you to share how big the snake was.
Oh, was it a 6 or 8 foot anaconda?
So not a little snake.
Oh, no. It was yeah, it was kind of a creepy snake. No, it was absolutely beautiful. Catherine says it was huge. It was a beautiful thing. It was part of a wand, which and the snake was integral to the artwork, and so we worked a long time to keep it, you know, to have enclosure that was respectful for the animal.
Yeah.
And our animals, this thing got out.
Well, everyone was safe and sound, and thank you for your good work in keeping it calm and away from people. So one of the other things that kind of preparing for this conversation, I had two questions that I think in your mind you kind of combined together. And one of them was, is there a piece that comes to mind that was just so monumentally challenging? It was like, how do we even accomplish this? And one of the other ones was, have you had an installation or an artwork that really just kind of left you in awe? Maybe it's an artist that you really loved that you finally got to work with. And I think for you, you mentioned, I think those two questions kind of have the same answer.
Oh yeah, it's contemporary art, and so it sometimes it's very large, but also really very fragile. So that it can be both those things at the same time: very large, very heavy, and also very fragile. I was thinking, and if something something is difficult to install or challenging, it's not necessarily a comment on the artist or anything of that nature. It's just the way it works out. I'm thinking we borrowed a De Hossa exhibition, or we presented one several years ago, and one of the works was a series of very they were pinned to wood panels, and the wood panels were enormous. They were like 12 by 5.5, almost 6 feet, and there were 5 panels, and they got bolted together in something sort of one unit that was 12 by 28 or 30 feet long. And the drawing sort of flowed over this enormous wood panel, and it had to be hung. Each panel had their own hanging points, and it was just enormously heavy. And we had 8 people on it, and that's just enough people to get it to lift it up and get it onto the hanging hardware. But the problem wasn't with the artwork. The problem was with the wall, and no walls are perfect. They're not perfect flat. So we would lift this enormous wood panel up onto the hanging points, and we would get 4 of the 5 panels perfectly hung, and the 5th one just wouldn't go. And so we'd take it down and try it again, then 2 would go up and 3 wouldn't, and then we'd take it down and bring it up again. All the time we're getting more and more, sort of a little frustrated, a little tired, and go take a break, take lunch, try it again. It took us better part of a day to get it up with, we would get 1 that wouldn't go on, we get 2 that wouldn't go on, and finally we managed those sorts of things are just kind of, it seems like a simple thing, but sometimes things surprise you at how sort of complicated they are. Another large thing that just blew me away, a large artwork that we installed, where we bought the Ella Natsui exhibition again a couple of years ago, and that was just fantastic. His artwork, the work he's most known for are the tops of liquor bottles that are pounded flat and sort of sewn together, stitched together with copper wire to make these huge tapestries, 15-foot tapestries that flow onto the wall and then down onto the floor. And they're just absolutely beautiful to look at, and beautiful to look at up close, beautiful to look at the distance. They're just fantastic. I mean, it was a thrill to work on the show. They're just absolutely gorgeous. We showed an artwork by Liza Liu several years ago, which are those. April, you remember those beads?
Yeah, I think it was called Color Field. It was a huge, almost like a tapestry over the floor of our Strauss gallery.
These minute beads, glass beads, the size of a grain of rice, and they're sort of stacked together on stainless steel wire, 4 or 5 inches tall, and then they get sort of poked into plastic tiles, so they stand up like stalks of blades of grass. And there were several hundred thousand of these individual stalks of blades of grass made out of glass beads in a dozen colors all across our Strauss gallery downtown. And actually it's just beautiful to watch, beautiful to see. And that was, speaking of complicated, it took, we had volunteers planting these blades of grass into plastic tiles for weeks before to get the work ready to install. That was a lot of fun.
All right, our next question from the audience. Tom, Callas, personally, would you rather be in the galleries or in the vault?
Oh, that's a good one. Are there people in the galleries? Are there
No.
people in the? Okay, the galleries. Yeah, I'm in the galleries. In the galleries.
And for those who may not know, I think by the vault, we're referring to our off-site storage facility where we keep all of our incredible permanent collection safe. Do you have any favorites in the collection? Kind of like an old friend, you're in there and every time you kind of come across it or get to install it, it's just kind of, it's a personal favorite of yours?
Oh, I like the Ellsworth Kelly red, blue, green. There are very large painting by Ellsworth Kelly. Really simple, really beautiful condition, beautiful painting. I like that. We recently showed some photographs by Graciela Iturbide, which I think are fantastic, and I really like those.
Okay, next question. Approximately how many pieces do we have in the permanent collection, and are they all going to be displayed, or a large portion of them displayed in the new building?
Oh, that's a good question. So I think we have 5,400 works of art in the collection. Those are works that we own, the museum owns ourselves. And no, unfortunately, most of those are in storage. Most of those are going to stay in storage. We're typical of museums that the vast majority of artwork are at any one time are in storage, which is what makes our storage so critical, and that we make sure that it's the proper environmental conditions, that the artwork's safe there, that we monitor it, that we do periodic inventories to make sure that it's all there, because it doesn't get seen otherwise.
Are there any pieces in the permanent collection, maybe it's a delicate nature or a especially valuable piece that kind of makes you extra nervous to handle?
Oh.
Or should we not say?
You know, I get there are a lot of recently in the last 20 years, photographs have gotten much larger. And you know, photographs, they're now printed digitally, and they can be just enormous. And those are always a sort of a challenge, because they're a lot of times the paper may be very large, and they're just very susceptible to being creased or dented or. And so, you know, to tell you the truth, large photographs kind of worry me a little. Because they are, and because they are at the same time, you know, sort of large, but also very fragile.
Okay, somebody has asked, do the membership department and the registration department ever cross paths or have to work together on anything?
You know, we've worked together on the Monte Carlo. I think we've had. I think we've had, you know, for works, for things that the membership do, announcements and publications, they often have to, they want to use images from the collection, and then they come to the registrars and they want to make sure that we have the rights to use those. I think that's probably a frustrating thing for the membership, but we take very important, because we are a visual arts organization, and we want to make sure that we respect the copyright of the visual artists. So I think that's a. After you, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I will chime in and say it's not frustrating at all. No, but we definitely over the years have worked together. Whenever I kind of come up with any kind of like a fundraising appeal or a new membership brochure, we definitely work very closely with your department on image selection, permissions, what makes sense from a narrative story. And one of the things that I value in your department is your archival knowledge. So I think it was, when was it? We recently did one that involved some of Tony Goldsworthy's, the cairn. And you've got in your files and you pulled out stuff from when it was installed a couple of decades ago. And so you guys are a great resource for the advancement department when it comes to that stuff.
It's important, one of our jobs is to sort of have that information about artwork, and we keep files both digitally and our hard copies. April, I think when you come up with these appeals for the members, I love the way you do it. You'll come to what was the 30-second artwork we acquired in 1974? Oh, what was, can you give us some artwork with birds in them, or with the on the subject of X or Y or Z? Iana reminded me that, of course, we worked together in the auction.
Mm-hmm.
That's an all hands on deck activity, and of course it involves 100 or more artwork, and so we're responsible for making sure that all gets here safely, and we work with the advancement office quite closely with that.
So it may sound odd that we would work together, but we actually do.
Yeah, we do, and happily.
Yes. All right. So you're not in the office. What kind of focus are you having right now? Is it primarily, I know that in the past we've talked about the fact that there are a lot of conservation projects that you guys are working on in preparation for this new building and the collection kind of being in tip-top shape. Is that kind of, what are you doing now that you're stuck in your home and you can't run around the vault so much?
That was a big part of my activities for the first few weeks that that I was working from home. So we actually spent the last year looking at our collection, thinking, well, okay, what works would we want to show when we open the La Jolla galleries, and what condition are they in? Are there any condition problems that we should probably address sooner rather than later, and to make sure that the works look their best when they're on view? And so we went through the list of things of artwork that we had that we felt had some condition issues that we wanted to address, and we worked really closely with the Balboa Conservation Center, who are our local conservators, and we work very closely with them pretty much throughout the year. But it's particularly in the last year, we had their conservators out several times, looked at 100 or more artwork to give us a sense of what it might take to make to address some conservation issues. And then I spent the first few weeks of this lockdown looking at all that those numbers, trying to figure out, okay, what's the most important thing to, the most important thing that we need to conserve, and what works can be shown in their present condition, what works really need some issues addressed before they can be shown, what works are our highest priority. And this actually came at a really good time, because the BACC recently submitted a grant to the NEA, I believe, for conservation funds to help them help us to treat the works on our list. So we worked to give them this list of priorities, and we had sort of done all the groundwork and submitted the grant, which we feel like is a pretty strong application. So we're really kind of keeping our fingers crossed about that. We have other things to do. We have a collections management policy, which is the document which governs how we deal with our collection from a legal and an ethical and a practical matter. And it hasn't been updated in a few years, and we thought this was an opportunity to update that. So I've been working with the curators to read through that, to make some suggestions, and we're working through that. Of course, we're at home. All the museums, all our vendors are all working from home, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to transition from working at home and not having any art anywhere moving around to really sort of restarting this whole activity. So we've been participating in some webinars about how are other museums dealing with installing artwork when you can't stay 6 feet apart. Now, if you're talking about the Ellsworth Kelly, it's a 12-foot painting, then one person on one side, one on the other, that's fine. but you know, if an artwork needs 2 people on it and they can't stay 6 feet apart, how do you work that? How do you ship something if the moment of transition between the truck drivers and the museum, how do you handle that transition? So we're working on that.
Makes
It's
sense.
kind of exciting, kind of you know, a little bit of uncertainty.
Okay, we have a question. Could you talk about the installation process for Chris Burden's The Reason for the Neutron Bomb?
Really, that's fantastic. So the artwork is 50,000 nickels, 50,000 US 5-cent pieces. Each one has a the head of a match glued to the top of the nickel. And it's meant to represent, it's from the mid-1980s, and it's meant to represent the, each nickel is meant to represent one tank in the Warsaw Pact armies, and it's you know, sort of the idea behind it is if there are 50,000 tanks in the Soviet arsenal, this is the reason why they have the neutron bomb. But each of the nickels has to get placed a certain distance from all of its neighbors, and we have these templates that are basically large metal plates with holes drilled in them, and you put a nickel in each hole, and you fill up all the holes, and then you move the template to the next sort of row, and it fills it up again. So it takes several weeks and the artist was very specific that he wanted new nickels each time, so you have to acquire $1,200, $2,500 worth of nickels. I can't do the math in my head. $2,500 worth of nickels, and then glue a match head, an identical match head to each nickel, and then all the nickel match heads have to face Moscow. So wherever you are in the world. It was most recently in Texas, and so they had to figure out where's Moscow from here.
So slightly painstaking.
It's painstaking. It takes several weeks to do. Several weeks to do, and it's sort of it's a sort of a classic Chris Burden artwork. It's I mean, it's kind of just sort of an awesome thing to look at and to regard, but also it's this very precise installation.
Susanna Flaster would like to know, going back to the courier conversation. Sorry, Susanna, I missed this one. Was there ever a transfer that was especially challenging or hard?
Transit. I mean, they're all sort of nerve-wracking. The Memories of Under Development exhibition was a challenge, because we worked with a lot of countries in South America that we've never ever worked with before. You know, we do international shipping between the UK and France and Spain and Germany, not often, but periodically. But you know, we never worked with Colombia and Peru and Argentina and Brazil, and those are you know, they have their own specific customs and art shipment or requirements that we're sort of learning on the fly. And the thing that was interesting about it is there are just a few companies in the U.S. that handle sort of customs importation for art. I mean, there are a number, but it's not a huge number. And the Memories of Under Development was part of the Getty's Pacific Standard Time initiative, which meant that 100 or dozens of museums in Southern California were all doing exhibitions on the same subjects, not the same subjects, but the same sort of theme, Latin America. So we were all working on getting artwork from Peru and Colombia and Brazil and Argentina. And so I really think we may have overstretched the ability of say, a local customs people in Sao Paulo, because we were all had exhibitions opening in September, and you know, we had many more museums were borrowing artwork, so that was challenging. You know, one of the artworks in that exhibition, we borrowed it from the estate of an artist, and it needed some reworking. We really hadn't been told about, and I think we were opening like on a Thursday, and it was the Saturday before, and it still hadn't been picked up in Brazil. So we were kind of, I'm not sure it's going to get here. So we started to be prepared. Well, it might not get here in time. It was kind of an important work, but that was probably one of the most nerve-wracking things. It's just there's nothing we can do on our end. It hadn't been collected yet. So if it gets here, it gets here. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Wow. All right. Well, I think, we're coming towards the end of our chat here. Is there anything on behalf of registrars out there that you want to kind of share with our community about what is you do and what you are looking forward to in your career?
Actually, no, I think we pretty much covered it. We're hopeful that that soon we're going to be able to be back and seeing our colleagues again, and also back in the galleries, back in our storage, back to whatever normal is on the other side. So we want to thank. I'm glad everybody was participated today. I'm so glad to see so many people want to tune in here.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to thank you. This is fantastic. It's a great opportunity for me. I had a blast.
Well, good. Thank you so much, Tom. We miss our daily chats with you, and thank you all to the members who are watching today. We so appreciate you guys sticking with us during this time and continuing your support. And for the staff who are watching, we're coming for you. Who's going to be next? Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.
Thanks, April. Take care, guys.